throughout the daily kind of, daily, weekly, monthly workflows, you can kind of see who steps up to the plate and really takes ownership of their work and who doesn't, right? It becomes very quickly evident who your team leaders are and kind of where their strengths are and where their weaknesses may be. And so you can always shore those up. But the moment that you challenge them to step up is the moment that they actually, either take the mantle and run with it or they shy away from it.
This is Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest marketing agency challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what agencies go through, from turning clients to tackling tech and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, where each and every week we're talking to marketing agencies like you, going through many of the same struggles you're going through and sharing their stories. Subscribe to find in each episode the inspiration, the motivation, and the perspiration that go into growing and scaling agencies like yours. Every agency owner has been there, staying up late to fix that client emergency, jumping in to handle the important task because no one can do it quite like you can, and feeling the weight of needing to have all the answers. It's exhausting, unsustainable, and secretly undermining your agency's potential. If you're caught in this cycle of being the agency hero, constantly swooping in to save the day, you might be the biggest obstacle to your own growth. Today's guest knows this challenge intimately. Igor Avidon, founder and CEO of Avidon Marketing Group, has built a thriving agency by doing the opposite of what many agency owners do. He stopped trying to be the hero. Instead of having all the answers, he's created a culture where his team leads, innovates, and drives results. His approach to leadership and agency growth has transformed not just his business, but the way his clients view what's possible with their own marketing. Hey, Igor, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'd love if you could just take us back to the moment where you realized being the agency hero wasn't serving you or your business anymore.
Yeah, I kind of had this idea, from the very beginning. I don't think that playing the hero in general is it's not really a requirement if you do the proper amount of preparatory work. And ultimately, I think that it does get in the way of conducting good business, right? So getting good results and making sure that everything is running smoothly. So it was pretty early on that I knew that you know I had to have teammates who were there to lift, to do the heavy lifting on their part and making sure that everything was already lined up so that if and ever there was a time where something needed advocacy or something needed to be kind of reinforced to a client, we basically were already ready.
Terrific. So, what were some of the first steps then that you took to kind of pull yourself away from that role and shifting away from being the person with all the answers?
Yeah. So basically, I think that the hiring methodology that I had employed from the very beginning is to hire competent people and basically allow them to create the kind of, sustainable processes and workflows that allowed them to quickly pull together the kind of data and the kind of evidence of the results that our work generates, that it was really easy to assemble it at a moment's notice. And so whenever we had to have a conversation with the client who maybe had some questions about the progress of the campaign or, the kinds of results that we were driving, it was very easy and very obvious where I needed to go and how I needed to put it together. And frankly, I mean, it's a streamlined process at this point that we rarely have to get to now, but streamlining it from the very beginning with the individuals, who are team leaders on my team, that makes it really easy.
Were there any specific strategies that you used back then to like sort of empower some of those team members? Because I imagine for some of them at least, it was probably different than maybe previous roles that they'd had. How did you help them kind of embrace this change?
Yeah. So I think that people are naturally inclined towards wanting to lead, right? They want autonomy. I think that most professionals will kind of prefer autonomy. They will prefer to have, responsibilities that they are directly responsible for. And, I think that first of all, I vocalized it, right? I literally told them, look, my expectation is for you to be a professional and to do the work at the best level that you can possibly do it. and I will help you refine it. I will always provide onboarding and training, and further kind of, your knowledge base. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately on you to continue to drive yourself to be the best version of yourself in your role. And so ultimately, that conversation starts at that point, right? And I do think that most people respond really positively to it because they're kind of really excited to take that challenge head on. Most of my team leaders were people who worked for me at a lower level and were promoted into the leadership positions because they simply embraced that challenge. And so, that makes it very easy because you can throughout the daily kind of, daily, weekly, monthly workflows, you can kind of see who steps up to the plate and really takes ownership of their work, and who doesn't, right? It becomes very quickly evident who your team leaders are, who, and kind of where their strengths are and where their weaknesses may be. And so you can always shore those up. But the moment that you challenge them to step up is the moment that they actually, either take the mantle and run with it or they shy away from it.
Having worked for a small business that was kind of like an agency and having certainly talked to, hundreds of agency owners, I see a lot of agency owners who feel like they're the best one equipped to solve any particular problem or question that might come in. So I'm wondering if you could share an example where that wasn't the case, where you letting go of control actually led to like better results than if you had actually stepped in to save the day.
Yeah. So, quite a few instances like that. And it did come, it did come as a shocking realization to me that I don't have all the answers and maybe I'm not the right, person to be addressing a particular query. Um, there were definitely times, for example, with data and analytics where, my team leader on that side had much better expertise level and much higher understanding of it, and, frankly, I simply had to pull him into the conversation, but the way that he addressed it and the way that he was able to explain it was simply better for the client, right? They had to understand the nuances of it. And there were things that I simply wasn't necessarily aware of those nuances. And so, pulling that person into that conversation was definitely helpful. Now, I did have to act as a mediator, right? So some of that, some of the more complex terminology, maybe, or complex, concepts might have been a little bit, kind of could have been a little bit too overly complicated. But at the end of the day, it even I didn't know them until I had this explained to me by my team lead, right? So that probably would have been a really good one.
I love this example because it really underscores the point that as humans, and we're all human, we don't have all the answers. We haven't experienced everything. And hopefully, we've done a great job hiring, like Igor talked about a moment ago. And we brought in really, really competent professional team members who are really, really good at what they do. And there probably some areas that don't necessarily overlap with your own skill set. So it's really smart to be able to recognize the fact that, hey, I've got smart team members and they know more than I do in a lot of areas. Folks, we're talking with Igor Avidon about how to work less in your business and more on your business, which means freeing up chunks of time. In a moment, we're going to uncover one of the biggest challenges Igor faced. But first, let's make sure your entire team is saving themselves time to focus on what matters.
When I take a look at the biggest core benefit for Agorapulse, I have to look at two sides of the equation. I have to look at what it does for us as far as managing our community and all of the conversation management tools, which I appreciate so much. But from a far more pragmatic point of view, it saves us money. It saves us a lot of money because of the productivity features that are built in with how it manages those conversations. We don't waste time. We're efficient.
Agorapulse allows me to get through all my messages and my replies really quickly. That's probably the number one reason for me wanting to use the tool. It saves so much time.
A big draw for me with Agorapulse was the ability to manage my YouTube comments. That is a huge feature for me, and here's why. Because up until then, I basically would have to go into my social media manager system to do everything there, and then I'd have to log out, go back into YouTube, and do the same thing there. Now, when you are managing multiple clients, this becomes a huge waste of time. right? And what we want to do is streamline that efficiency. So we can log into one website now. We can manage all of our major social profiles there, and we're able to serve our clients with more clarity and purpose.
They worked with us, they helped train us on how to get everything up and going, and we were able to cancel out all the other tools that, we didn't need anymore. So it saved us a lot of time and a lot of headache for my team members as they're, now they only have one tool that they can maximize their clients in.
So Igor, it sounds like one of the benefits or results of this approach is giving your individual team members a lot more autonomy. So I'm wondering how you balance that while still maintaining quality, consistency, those kinds of things for clients that I'm sure you are ultimately responsible for.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a learning curve. Nobody comes into any position fully prepared, and I think that this is where your weekly and monthly check-ins, especially weekly, especially early on when you bring somebody on to perform a particular role. I think those are important, right? And so again, I think that the individuals who are really kind of thriving, I think those are the ones that are actually actively seeking out information from you, right? They're actively seeking out more training. They're asking you questions, right? And this is something that I really strongly encourage in the company, that questions should be asked because that means that you're learning. If you're not asking questions, that means you're probably stagnating. Especially in our industry with SEO and content marketing, there's just things are just constantly changing. I mean, every core algorithm update every year, there's something new going on. So we kind of have to stay ahead of the curve, and there's always something to learn. I mean, I have to learn things myself as well. So we really try to take that kind of ongoing training seriously. I think that most of my team leads still to this day, kind of ask me every single day or every single week, my opinion or kind of my take on a subject matter that is newer to our company, that is newer in the industry, and and how we're approaching every single campaign that we have on hand.
It makes sense. Are you using any kind of particular framework for your agency, like EOS or anything like that, to structure things like meetings and reports?
No, to be completely honest, I do prefer it to be much more organic. I do think that there are time blocks that are kind of when I'm more readily available for just random questions, right? In a team chat. But generally speaking, something like a monthly call. We do hold monthly calls with each team lead, just to kind of make sure that everybody's on the right page, that everything for the upcoming month is properly being planned and strategized. But that's more on a campaign specific level, right? So for every client campaign like we will talk about those campaigns, but naturally and organically questions will pop up, and a team lead might ask me, why are we doing this way? And I'm more than happy to explain, right? That's like a training session, and that's again, sometimes it's a 2 minute quick training, and sometimes it becomes a 2 hour conversation where the overall methodology comes into play, and we start to really discuss about why we're doing things the way that we're doing and why it's different from how we did it 5, 7 years ago.
Right. So as you've been navigating this change over the past few years, what has been the biggest challenge to this evolution in your leadership style, and how did you overcome it?
Wow, the biggest challenge, there are quite a few. I think that fully delegating responsibilities and trusting your employees is always going to be difficult. I am a bit of a control freak, but at the same time, I really do understand the need to free up my own bandwidth. And so, trusting my team leaders to really kind of make their own call in any given scenario has become a very important exercise for me. And I'm very happy to report that they are doing a very, very good job of that. And, it makes me happy, obviously. And, it's definitely fruitful, right? So that exercise more often than not is actually showing me that, my team leaders are in a position to succeed, that they are thinking the right way, that they are definitely learning on our previous training experiences. And, it's going smoothly so far.
Awesome. So have there been any tools or resources that you've turned to help you go from being this tactical expert to a truly strategic leader in the organization?
I'm not sure if any given specific tool has been implemented to help with that. I think overall it's just utilizing all the tools that we already use. Ultimately, I think it's just making sure that every piece of software kind of works towards the same purpose to to allow us to strategically be strong and not sap away bandwidth where it's unnecessary, right? So the kind of the ongoing refinement of our streamlined processes is constantly there. We are constantly aware of it, and it is constantly at the forefront of our mind. But ultimately, it's every single tool that we use, whether it's Trello for project management, whether it's Google Chat and the Google Suite, business tools. Like everything has its role, and we're just constantly refining it to streamline our processes.
Got it. Now, I think this is a really important conversation because almost every agency owner that I've ever talked to didn't start off with a 30-person team. They started off as an individual doing work, boutique work, usually, maybe even side hustle, and then eventually grew themselves into an agency with employees. So they're all going to, if they haven't already, run into the need for this thought process and shift. What advice would you give folks like that who are needing to change, but they're afraid to let go?
Well, it's the only way to grow, right? So you kind of have to look at it almost like as if it's a financial decision. You
Mm,
cannot handle all the workload. That is simply impossible. And ultimately, I do think that it benefits everybody. I think it benefits your clients, right? You can bring on more clients by being able to handle more and more of a workload. And it frankly it benefits you, right? I mean, you are in a better position to grow your own brand, to grow your agency. I will say that I think that one of the big things that I did is tap into my immediate network. I think that vast majority of the hires at our company has been through our immediate network. So we knew who we were hiring. We had references directly from existing employees, and from friends, about people who are very good and very passionate about what they do. And so I think that that's been a critical tool for us, in terms of how we approach hiring. And that makes it a lot easier to trust people with their expertise and their level of ownership.
Igor, I can't tell you how helpful this has been. I know I'm learning a lot, and folks are going to want to go back and listen to this a couple more times, I think. But if they've got more questions for you, they want to reach out and connect, where should they go?
Sure. So you can reach out to us at our website, so avidonmarketinggroup.com. You can use any of the contact forms. I am copied directly on all of those. You can also send me an email directly. It's Igor, Igor, at avidonmarketinggroup.com. And hopefully you won't be put into the spam inbox. Hopefully the filtering system will not put you there. But if it does, you can always reach out again using the website.
Terrific. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, all of you, for listening. Of course, we'll have all those links in the show notes below. But that's all the time we've got for today. Don't forget to find the Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition on Apple and drop me a review. Let me know what you thought of this episode and what kinds of topics you'd like to see us cover next time. Till then. Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Agency Edition, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by Agorapulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us.